10.
I
I
got about
logged
a
into the
minute.
meeting. I did.
Okay, we're good. Dan says we're good.
Yeah. Get bread on the way home. No.
Call wife, see what needs to be picked
Yeah.
up, little Dylan's.
I called the meeting of the USD 489 Board of Education to order for the regular meeting on September 13th, 2022. We had our agenda published on board docs earlier at the end of last week. At this time, I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I would like to make an addition to, so I move that we make an addition to agenda like 6.5, agenda request and board member discussion.
Okay, we need to approve the agenda with that, but
What are you wanting to do, Alan?
you're wanting to add an agenda item?
Yes, I want to add the agenda item that's been on our agendas for
Okay.
decades.
Okay,
And it's
so-
been deleted and I just, we,
So do we,
I made a
at this
motion.
point,
We've
need
got a
to,
motion and a
a
second.
motion and a second on, so you're making a motion to add that at 6.5?
yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to add, tell me your motion again.
I'd like to add
Can you
agenda
get your
requests.
mic? It's hard to hear you, Alan. I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, thank you. I would like to add item 6.5, agenda requests and board member discussion.
Okay, and we've had a motion and a second up for discussion. I know we have discussed prior that the policy of submitting board agenda requests to the president within 7 days.
Yes.
And we've had that discussion several times.
Correct, and we had this on the agenda item, but at that point, we could, one of the important board members wasn't at that meeting, so we didn't really discuss it. And I was waiting to see if that was something you might consider putting back on. We've had that on our agenda as you go back decades, and it's always been on there. I know we don't always have to do that, but I just don't know the reason why it's not on there. It goes along with our mission is to have positive and great communication, and I don't know when we're going to have time for board members to have discussion. And if you look back at previous agendas, clear back, there's been always board members who brought up things during that section, and there's really not a time that we can do that.
But that time was just allowed to put it on the next agenda, not to discuss it at that meeting, if I remember right.
And wasn't that just something President Walker had
No.
initiated?
No, it's not. It's been there
Because I
for
always
years.
understood it was, I mean, I always understood it was a 1 year under the leadership, well, 2, was he president 1 or 2 years?
Too.
I think we've discussed this, but
Any other discussion?
I would like to know, as a president, why are you deciding that you don't think it should be on there? Or do you-
Because mine is, I hadn't heard from any board member that we have 3 weeks to request agenda items be put on the agenda prior to the next meeting, or at least 2 weeks prior to the next meeting. And I really didn't see a need, to be honest.
It's just been a practice that we've had, and I think a lot of boards do it. It's just an opportunity for board members to comment on certain things, whether it's not even on the agenda, whether it's something that happened at one of their schools. It's just, there's no other time to do that. And so that's why I'm just requesting to put that back on.
But my view on that, maybe I'm wrong, is if we put what you had suggested that for agenda request, that does not open it up for an agenda item to be discussed at that meeting.
Correct. That's just for future meetings. So it gives you at least 3 weeks to research it, to look it on there, instead of just 1 week.
Okay.
It's probably more efficient to get that out, so if there's a board member that has something they want to discuss, it gets it to the administration and to the board president way early. Just makes sense.
I respect your opinion on that. Let's go ahead. Any other discussion?
I would piggyback, at least if I have an agenda request, it's out in the public and people know, if I submit it to the president, only one that knows it's you and I.
Okay.
And so I think, like Alan said, it's transparency, it's out in the open, that's a concern of a board member. They'd like to see something discussed, whatever that topic might be.
But we always have the opportunity to make a motion to add an agenda item at every meeting. So, I mean, so that
It's the same-
aspect
it's
of,
the same thing, no?
Yeah.
You could add this to this meeting tonight if you made that motion instead of this one. But, okay,
Anyway.
let's, don't delay. Any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. We've had the discussion. All in favor of Alan's amendment to or adding to the agenda, vote by saying yes.
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 All opposed?
no.
No? No. Okay, motion failed. Jess, did you get?
I need everyone to finish voting.
Okay,
Mine
They're
never
not
popped
done
up.
voting.
Do we have to refresh?
there it is.
Yeah, you might have two-thirds, it is on.
Motion failed.
Okay. Earlier, we had a motion and a second to approve the agenda as printed in board docs. Do I have any further discussion? All approve of the agenda, vote yes.
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 All opposed, vote no.
No.
Okay, moving on to the USD 49 District Mission, Vision, and Core Values. I always like to remind myself and everyone here, the mission of USD 49 is to provide a quality learning experience for every student in every classroom every day. To support the mission of the district, the USD 49 Board of Education includes supporting a vision that encompasses high student achievement, highly effective staff, effective and positive communications, effective management of resources. Move on to 2.0, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr.
So moved.
President,
Yes?
I would request to pull the personnel transactions out of the consent agenda, please.
Okay, so you want to clarify something in personnel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a second?
You don't need a second, do you?
Oh, no,
pulled-
you,
No, we don't.
that would just pull personnel transactions, thanks. Okay, any other? I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
2.4 pulled down.
Tammy, are you still making that motion with
I mean,
2.4?
it doesn't matter if it's pulled out or not. I mean, he's pulled it out, so,
Okay,
yeah, so yeah, I guess with those changes, it would,
okay.
I wouldn't
do
have to make
I
a
second
motion.
it.
Second, I have a motion and a second. All approved, vote yes.
Yes.
Yes. All against, vote no.
Yes.
The only thing is, if it's a specific question about the
Individual.
individual, then we'll have to do that in executive session, so that would have to be moved after the executive session.
Okay, if we need to, we can do that.
I didn't know if that was white, if it was a specific question about.
It's about a specific position, and so It's not necessarily about the specific person, so
Okay,
Probably.
I'll be careful about not,
okay.
and if you feel we need to move it to that, we can do that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can, if it's not a bad person for that position, then that would not be a matter of discussing the position. That would not be a position.
Okay, so at this point, we'll leave it where it's at and move to that point and make that decision.
Refresh.
Okay,
Have to refresh so that it comes up.
okay, need to refresh? Yeah. Okay, reminder, have we approved the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're ready for 3.1 Student Spotlight Award.
It should be, okay, so if you refresh.
Ron, do you want to introduce
Yes.
our
Refresh right here.
spotlight?
Oh, okay, there it is.
Let's do
Then
this.
you'll have to go back in.
Stand up.
Join the meeting.
If
I get the right name?
I know that.
There she was going.
Okay, super. Come on up. You're gonna go up here.
There
We're
it
gonna
is,
talk about
okay,
it.
sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it.
Thank you so much.
This is Savannah Klingen. She is a ninth grader at Hayes High. She recently placed second in the nation in her age group in the Daughters of American Revolution American History Essay Contest.
Wow.
The essay contest that Savannah placed second in was for students in grades 5 through 8. Previously, Savannah won at the state level last spring when she was an 8th grader at Hayes Middle School. And then she and her essay moved on to the national competition this summer. Essays are centered on a theme that changes annually, that is most often to commemorate the anniversary of an important event. The 21-22 American History Essay Contest commemorated the 100th anniversary of the dedication of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at the Arlington National Cemetery. The monument was dedicated on Armistice Day in 1921 with a ceremony led by then President Harding. This year, in their essay, students were asked to write from the perspective of a young person whose brother had lost his life in the Great War, who had traveled to Arlington National Cemetery to be present with her family at their dedication. Students wrote about what this event meant to them and why they believe remembering those who gave their lives for their country is so important. Savannah earned herself a $500 scholarship to use as she chooses for placing second nationally. Had she placed first, her family would have won a free trip to Washington, D.C. So Dave, I think David has grounded her for that. We want to thank Savannah for her enthusiastic participation in this essay contest, and also thank her for representing her schools and her community in such a first-class way. So congratulations, Savannah.
I think she should go
We
around.
think we'd have some money to add to your $5, but we don't. So all we're going to do, would you like to speak or say anything? Okay.
Savannah, I do have a question. I'm going to put you on the spot while you're here on this. I know when students come in front of us, it's been their kindergarten teacher, their first grade teacher, all the way. But since it was last year, who was your history teacher at the middle school?
My history teacher is Kyle Hadley.
Oh,
I saw him sitting there, so I wanted to make sure we got him introduced. So thank you.
Softball question.
You want us to stand behind you?
If you want to, how about you don't look it up? I can take one for and then shake your hand.
Okay, yeah. Savannah, start over there and shake her with hands and come around.
she likes driving my Kubota on my farm.
Oh, this is.
Lizzie
that one.
Lizzie Woods.
Congratulations.
Are you be my Kubota driver.
Awesome job.
Nice job. Okay, super.
Okay, Ron, is that the only one we have?
That's only one.
We have so many good things going on around the district. I started making a list today of just who should be in the spotlight, and I decided not to run the meeting late tonight. I may do that at some other time or submit it to Ron, because between the academics and the sports teams and the band, well, I'll put a little header. The middle school band's going to the state fair tomorrow, so they will be representing Hayes and Hutchison in front of the state of Kansas, and they always do a tremendous amount. And I know I will forget a lot. I just wanted to mention that one, but there's a lot of good things going on around the district, and we probably need to take time to get several other people spotlighted if possible too, as we move through the fall and the winter with this. Okay, ready for 4.0, public forum. The public forum guidelines. The board requests that all members of the public respect the rules outlined below, so that everyone that wants an opportunity to provide input to the board will be given the chance. Speakers are asked to start with stating name and address and where they reside. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes to make presentations. Speakers are asked to make only points that have not been made previously. Except to ask clarifying questions, board members shall not interact with speakers at the open forum. The board asks that all members of the public respect the rules, so that everyone that wants an opportunity to provide input to the board that has not already been given a chance will have that opportunity. So I want to welcome everyone that came tonight with our board meeting. Again, I apologize that we had to adjust the schedule from the regular Monday night because we didn't have everyone here last night, but it gave me an opportunity to see Denver get beat. No, with Monday Night Football through that. So do I have anybody in the audience who'd like to speak, address the board? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on with the agenda. Superintendent's report, Ron.
Yeah, I'll share some things, some more good things, actually. But on the bond, a little bit on the bond update. We have been working on FEMA applications and what is called a BRIC application, which BRIC stands for Building Resilient Infrastructures for Communities. That is part of the recent infrastructure mega deal that was recently approved at the federal level, and which I think is really good timing for us here, because of what we're looking at is building 3 storm shelters at O'Laughlin, Roosevelt, and the new high school. And so with that, we're trying to, I guess, get our bang for our buck. And so by looking at these applications, we can get some funding help that will not take away from our bond money as we look to build those structures. And so we've been visiting with a lady at the state level, and she's indicating that it really looks like we have the funding opportunities for these storm shelters, which will really be our gymnasiums as well. And there's just so many options that we can look at, and even to the point of if we would happen to not get any of these, there's even some funding available because of our high winds last December that the state actually has. So I think we're right on the right track. Our application is actually, I think, coming up in January, but this is the first part of it, which is somewhat intensive already because it's just giving the intent that we plan to apply. And there's quite a few questions that we have to answer and submit. And so just wanted to make the board aware of what we're looking at there. Also like to update the board a little bit about our mental health initiative that we have started in the district. This is a reminder to the board, we do this at Hayes High and Hayes Middle. And last year we had 193 students who were served in our MHIT program, Mental Health Initiative Team Program. We had 88 students who showed improvement in attendance once they were part of the program. We had 128 students show improvement with some of those externalizing behaviors that also sometimes cause them some issues. We had 88 students who showed improved academic performance, and even probably more important, we had 146 students showed the improved internalizing behaviors. The internalizing behaviors are those behaviors that sometimes we don't necessarily always see. It's what they're feeling, thinking, and I think that's the key of the program. So I just wanted to highlight to the board just some of the good things that are being done through our mental health initiative as we're working with students daily.
Actually, I visited with, if you don't mind,
Go for it.
Jamie Malone, who is our liaison at the middle school. Last year, we met with High Plains and asked for additional therapy hours because of the need on site, that if we're seeing that very beneficial where kids can stay on site. And we were notified that they will add 4 more hours. It'll be a tele-therapy session, but we've started that. So we've increased those therapy hours there at the middle school. And so we were very grateful for that. And we'll see how the telehealth goes, but that's exciting.
Also, we just wanted to update the board a little bit on some things on our Hayes High with their career exploration, their pathways, and their concurrent credit. This is something that Becky Hickert put together. If you happen to hear Shannon on the radio, she used some of this, but I thought that's really good stuff and something we should share. They had 97 students at Hayes High in career exploration placements, which is up about 60 from last fall. So that's one of our goals, is to get kids out, give them opportunities to see some work in the careers that they may be considering. Somewhat on the pathways, they had 120 members of the class of 2022 that were pathway concentrators and at least one pathway. And I think that's a credit to the work that's being done at the high school. They have 395 underclassmen right now who were pathway participants, at least one pathway. So that is really good, and also means that they're very close to they're on their way to becoming pathway completers. They also just kicked off their health science pathway this year, and they have 70 students in their intro to health careers course, which is really exciting, because that is a career field that there's been a lot of interest in. And then just some of the concurrent, we have over 250 students enrolled in concurrent credit courses. English, math, science, social studies, Spanish, business, music. I won't go through all of them, but if, you look at certified nurses aid, we've got pharmacy tech, we've got auto mechanics. We have some students who are involved in the Kansas Academy of Math and Sciences, which is getting through their high school years, or actually getting to take full college classes. We have 5 students who are taking on-campus classes at Fort Hays during the school day, and we have 46 students taking online college courses through either NCK Tech or Fort Hays State during their school day. So really remarkable. Talking about what we're pushing, not pushing, that makes it sound like we're forcing kids. We're creating opportunities for kids as being high school students, giving them some great opportunities. And then also mentioned in this little piece is that Hayes High is now working with Fort Hays State to offer intro to military and military health courses beginning in the spring of 2023. So that's very exciting. I want to talk a little bit about post-secondary. I think we have some good news to share. if you disconnect, I'll connect. So this is something also, and Shanna can jump in here as well, but I think it's, if you want to look at, remember the post-secondary progress and what we're doing, and as we, all those things that we were talking about is, you know, setting kids up for their future. And if you look at it, we're always 2 years delayed, because the data that we're receiving is totally computed off 2 years after their class has graduated. So if you look at it right now, I think it's really interesting. Our graduation rate is at 91.1, which in 2020, it was 91.1. Our success rate, okay, and the success rate are those four things, meaning that we're always working towards it, that a student has some kind of certificate, you know, whether it's a CNA, auto mechanics, welding, those kinds of things. We're seeing if they're getting a certificate, they're considered successful, or they're working towards a post-secondary certificate for a degree, or, and then of course if they're enrolled in a post-secondary you know, class, or I mean an institution, then they're considered a success. So right now we're at 76.3. You know, I think that's unbelievable. If you go back here just a year, we were at 74. If you go back, you know, a year later, it's 68. You know, we were at 70 and then 70. So we're seeing some really good growth with what we're at success. And then that effective is just how are we doing it with their kids that are graduating and our success rate. They calculate that, and we're at 69.5. And that's the thing to really highlight our effective rate. This is our goal right here, 70 to 75. Right now we're at 69.5. That is what the state has said is the goal, and we're just a tick away from getting there.
So my question is, is this considered data that's from January to December of that year? Or, because with 2020 and where COVID, so when's the start of the capturing? What is?
Well, this would be the graduating class of 2020.
Oh,
And then 2 years.
as of today.
2022, so
Okay.
then they looked at, of those kids that graduated in 2020, where are they now in 2022? Through the Lot Works Clearinghouse. How many have enrolled for a second semester at some post-secondary or earned certificates? So there's a lot but again, in the effective rate of 70-75 really is, in order to meet the demands of our workforce in Kansas, that is what is predicted we need that's with a post-secondary certificate or degree. The other 25 to 30 are successful in that they may have taken over a family business, they may be in the military, lots of other things, but that rate is generated based on what the work to keep up with the workforce.
So that's
But
something,
I don't know if that helped answer your
yes.
question about
Well,
why it's.
the reason I was asking, because obviously the graduating class of 2020 would have had such a tough starting, and we're still seeing our highest numbers in the most challenging year of our world. That's pretty cool.
they would have been sophomores. Is that, they would have been sophomores?
No, the 2020 graduating
Oh.
people there.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we self-report that? Is that us reporting that, or where do they get that information to
Well,
complete the?
I think they get it off of the National Clearinghouse. So when kids
Enrolled.
enroll, you have to
Okay.
put in all your data.
So they're pulling off
It's-
Clearinghouse
It's
number,
thrown
okay.
into that. It's all. So
As we used to do that for, back, if we hit the completers and concentrators, that was us doing that, and we were trying to remember.
Right. Well, there's still a lot of that, and Perkins, and
Sure.
that happens as the kids move on, but for this particular measure, it's through the clearinghouse, and they've really done a lot to get all the different
Feed.
community colleges and any post-secondary institution. And, you know, really, I think what I heard Becky say, and even KSD is talking about how we need to recognize any post-secondary accomplishment, because it was known as a CTE path and then a college prep path, where really career tech ed encompasses all, like pathway to become an educator, pathways to become anything in the medical field. It's about pathways and having kids explore options and then really get them on a path that they feel is something of their choosing, and then help set them up on post-secondary, no matter what it is. So we are all really, career tech ed is a goal for all, and should be celebrated no matter the post-secondary. And it ties in so nicely with, we've talked about what we're doing in the field of teaching and learning. Everybody plays a part in our successful high school graduate. So this is a celebration from pre-K all the way up to high school, because all of those pieces put together is what really helps kids be able to be successful after high school.
Just another thing I'll say, if you look at that last box that, where that predicted, they predict, we really, based upon our graduation rate and our success rate, we should be somewhere 50 to 53. We're actually outperforming our predicted, which is really impressive. Just wanted to share that.
And if you remember when we talked about star recognition, there are additional recognitions called commissioner rewards if you kind of outscore your effectiveness rate, and so we've qualified for that in the past. That's how that's figured.
Okay.
Okay, that was really good information, and I want two positives, Christina from Hayes Post and Shanna. I really appreciate the podcast that was on Hayes Post this week, going over a lot of these information. So if anybody in the audience or out, if you're watching tonight and you have not, I think you can still pull up that podcast and look at it on Hayes Post. So
We pretty much summarized it here, but the one thing that was on that podcast that we probably want to talk about is, this is one measure. Another measure is social emotional well-being of our kids, and so we do need our families to, we sent a message to them last week for students in grade 3 through 12 to complete a form so that those students can fill out a questionnaire on how they're feeling academically, socially, emotionally, because that's those tools, in addition to attendance, behavior, course grades, are ways in which we can identify kids who need some extra support, because we know whether kids are just anxious about things. So that's an important measure that we've started using and have in place, and through legislation this past year now, we need parents to opt in. So that, just a reminder to families out there, grades 3 through 12, that to fill out that form. We will start administering that My Savers, that student survey, September 26th, maybe if that's the Monday, in another week or so. So just a reminder about that.
Shanna, you reminded me of something else. Our September 20th count's coming up here pretty quick, and so if people are wanting to go on the free and reduced lunches and they haven't applied, they still have a little bit of time, because this is the first time in a couple of years that all lunches are not free in the state of Kansas. So depending on socioeconomic help for families, they need to apply before September 20th, if possible.
They can do it.
Anytime, but it would help the district if they would.
Mr. Wilson, is it possible when I know there's some bond meetings coming up, and I think they're just like bond discussions at different schools. Can we get a list of those, or when they come up to say there's, let me know. Has there one already been at the middle school? Because I noticed on his, that they were going to have one coming up, I don't know, on their site council report.
I think what he's referring to, I don't know, I did not see what you saw.
Okay.
He met with the architect recently, Mr. Albers, and went through some things, but there was no actual community meeting or anything like that.
Okay. I saw on the site council report, it implied that there was a meeting coming up for the middle school for the bond, but I was just wondering. I'll look at it again.
I have a couple comments too, back to the superintendent report. Career explorations that we talked about, or you brought up earlier, a lot of parents, really good feedback. He come and talk to me about their kid got to saw this and that. And so the parents are excited as the kids are. But I had 3 or 4. But the 46 that we're talking about online taking classes through NCK. which involves, as a parent, one of my children, and they're enrolled in oral communications because Diane Mason retired, and evidently, we don't have anybody that's certified to do that, and that's why some of those kids are on there, because the opportunity is not there like they've had in the past.
Yeah.
And so, and you gotta take the college credit anyway, that's $300, but because we didn't fill that spot there, mom and dad are kicking in, for every one of those kids that are in that was another $250 to pay for that online tuition that's not in there too, so hopefully we're working on that, so kids coming up, and we didn't pay for the $75 textbook, but if it's in the school district and we're serving that class or those classes, all we're doing is paying that fee, so, and I think they're in the library doing it online where they're at, so that's not the best that we could be doing. So I don't know how many out of that 46 that affects, but I know it affects some of them, so.
I guess
Okay,
you have it? Are you
Go ahead.
good? Okay. I guess I would ask a question, I guess, of Shanna. On the social emotional part that you talked about, you got a survey going, you find out information from the kids. What then do you do with that survey?
We talked today, if we don't get enough, if the participation rate goes down, then it will really be hard to use that data to know how we're doing with our tier 1, like core social emotional curriculum. So we have lessons that we work with students in addition to just really intentionally making relationships and connections with students. But it's still, on an individual basis, it's one more piece of data that we would decide what's the next step intervention. Do we need to have additional things within the classroom and the teacher, which we're working with TASA, the behavior, social, emotional, we're working with the consultant to talk about some things we have in place, whether it's a morning check-in, just different communications. And then there's some things that we have our counselors and or other trained staff do some additional, social, emotional type lessons and skill building type things.
Good, good.
Thank you for asking that, Lori, because that brings up, okay, so, but these are anonymous responses, so or are they not?
No,
You would be able to
right.
know if somebody really
Right,
was
right.
concerning, you could intervene with an individual. But can you explain the opt-in, opt-out?
Well, parents can see the survey and then it talks about so they know what questions are being asked. And then they can choose to allow their students to participate or not. So we'll be collecting all that information, sending it out to buildings. They'll have to figure out who can and who can't. And this is new.
We
We gave it last year, but because of legislation passed, now it has to be something that families,
Interesting. So it's very likely then, because of the legislation passing it, to where those parents who may not be providing a healthy, supportive environment for their children may now remove our ability to gather that information.
I just would encourage anyone that has any hesitation to reach out to their school teacher, just to know how that's used. I mean, it's good that we're talking about it now, so that, if there are any questions or fears like, you're going to use this data, but it really is to help support in whatever ways needed that student to be successful, because it's so intertwined with academic and all the other things we do. So just reach out and ask questions if they have any.
So, and then I just have one more. Were you saying Alan, were you saying the HMS parent squad meeting minutes that we have, we're talking about the bond? Because it doesn't here. Is there somewhere else that?
Yeah, it does, I just looked at,
Yeah,
and I think what he's referring to is, he had a phone or a Zoom.
Alberston?
meeting with the architect
Oh, okay.
to discuss some things. I wasn't even involved in that, it was just a conversation with the architect, Mr. Alberston. I knew that was occurring, but I'm sure that's what he's referring to.
Are we planning some community meetings to include the community in the
Yeah,
planning?
there'll be something in October.
October? Thank you.
Because I know they're having the same meetings with the department heads, because I talked to
Sure.
several of those at the open house last night.
Yeah, I mean, there's meetings happening all the time. They're not meetings for everyone, it's just meetings for the group, the person that the architects need to visit.
Thank you.
Okay, any
Thank you,
other
Ron.
questions for Ron? If not, we'll move to 6.0, action and discussion items. 6.1, request for approval for Rockwell boiler tube replacement. Ron, Rusty?
Okay, so basically, I'm just gonna, I don't think there's a ton of conversation. We just got a 1955 boiler. And last year, at the end of the heating season, these fire tubes that are important to don't ask me to explain, you can get Rusty up here if you want. And that company came out, did a replacement of the tubes, and after they arrived, they inspected all the tubes and said, you need to replace all your tubes. So this required us to go out to get to bid. We got a bid for it. It's $26,900. We need these tubes to be replaced prior to the heating season to be able to use the boiler and keep all of us from Rockwell from freezing to death this winter, basically.
I love that.
I believe
And
you.
how many employees do we have here at Rockwell?
I don't know.
We're
40? 40, yes.
So, I mean, that's a low
Come on.
sacrifice.
Oh, you
That's
probably have that many.
to freeze
You have-
today.
You have more
We
employees
could be
too.
meeting somewhere else, I'm sure.
You have at least 40.
Well, yeah, I'd say that
West side.
I should count it out with, because that also includes West Side.
West Side.
So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Probably.
Oh, there's students over there.
60, 65, 70. let's say.
Okay.
So the basic premise to this is we need heat in this building
Yes, please.
till we get the bond issue. And so it's just not for 1 year, 2 year, it's till we get the high school built, the middle school into the existing, and then start redoing the elementary so we can move
We're probably in this building for at least.
Like 4 or 5 years.
at least 4
4
years. So, and we're not, if I understand when I talked to Rusty, we're not replacing the whole boiler. It's
No.
just the tubes
Just the
in the
tubes.
boiler.
Well,
Ru-
and
And if you'd like,
When-
Rusty, you can
Rusty,
draw it
do
up.
you have any,
You can talk about mud rails.
I have no idea what I'm
Mud
talking
lanes,
about
Sorry.
either.
Mud
I learned about
lanes? There's
lanes
mud in the
today.
boiler?
I learned a lot.
So, the boiler, there's actually 2 boilers in the boiler room. So, one of them, they abandoned in place long before I was here. We actually looked to see if we could take the burner off the one we had, move it over to the one that they had abandoned in place so that we could get by without having to do this. Tubes in it were shot too. That's probably why it was shut down in place at that time. Fire tubes are just a metal tube that goes through the water column in the boiler. When you heat the boiler up, the heat passes through the bottom set of tubes. There's probably like 30-some tubes in there. Passes through the bottom half of the tubes, turns, and then goes back through the top half of the tubes, and that's how you heat the water. It's basically a steel pipe going through what they call a boiler sheet, or a tube sheet. It's not welded. The tubes go in, they just basically crimp them, and then as the boiler heats up, it expands, and that's what seals your water off. On these, basically, our water here in Hayes, just as the alkali, it's ate them up. It's a 70-year-old boiler. But I'm guessing that those tubes they're usually about 20 years you're going to be replacing them. So we just unfortunately hit the end of the life expectancy for those before we got out of here, so where we're at.
Rusty, when was the last time that all of them were replaced?
I have no idea.
Because if I remember right, it was within 10, 15 years ago. And can you fix?
Usually about 20 years is what you're going to get out of them.
And can you just, in the past, we've just selected the ones that were leaking and just replaced those?
That's what we started to do, but there was enough of them that were damaged, there wasn't any way that we were going to do that, because as we were pulling those out, we were breaking more. I mean, they're just that bad.
So you've already replaced them, or?
We started to replace them, we didn't actually go ahead and replace them when we saw, they started cutting them out to take them out, and that's when we started seeing that we were going to have others fail, and it was just sort of domino effect after that.
We have one bid listed.
Right.
How many
There's only
bids
one
did we
bid.
have?
We went out to 3 vendors. One of them was out of Missouri. They never submitted a bid. The other contractor that we had that had actually given me quotes on it to sort of see where we were at, they were bought out and they switched, so they didn't bid. So we ended up with just the one bid at that point.
Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion that we approve this bid proposal from American Boiler and Mechanical for $26,900 to replace the boiler tubes at Rockwell.
Okay, I second it. open for discussion.
Yeah, I have a question for
Yeah.
Rusty, if he ran it. It says in here, we had a company come out to do a replacement of the tubes. That company, that's not the same company that's got the bid, is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So the company that came and told us that we needed to replace them is the company that got the bid?
Now, you got to understand.
I understand, but I'm saying, it doesn't look good. How come we said we had a company come out? Why didn't we give us the name of the company?
I guess I'm not understanding what
If
you're
we
saying.
had a company come out, why didn't it say that company's name?
Well, I guess I didn't think it was that big a deal. I didn't do it. I guess I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so
I understand.
I didn't look at it being that way. I mean, I had my engineer out here too. We've got an engineer that's working on projects. He actually helped me write the bid spec for it. I mean, it wasn't just my opinion or their opinion. We had other opinions involved.
So I was gonna say, it was Dwayne.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dwayne.
Dwayne Vaughn from Integrated Consulting Engineers also looked at it.
Because we had quotes, like I said, we had quotes from two different companies that are vendors here in Kansas that looked at it. We sort of had an idea what kind of money we were going to spend on it at that time. So, yeah, it's how it worked out.
And so they usually last 20 years?
Say that again.
Once you do it, it usually lasts 20 years?
Usually the expected life on those.
And so there were no other options to bids to get it for, because usually those singles, like $5,000,
Nope,
$6,000.
we put it out for bid throughout the state. Like I said, it was advertised. We even had a company out of Missouri that bid on it. and- or
Rusty,
looked to bid on it.
how many companies do you think can actually fix a 75-year-old boiler?
Well, as far as I know, in the state of Kansas, there's basically two, and one of those is,
One of them said no.
well, one of them was the one that they changed, they got bought
Right.
out.
Okay.
Was that a Wichita company?
Who do you have in front of you?
RAC?
Well, this is, American Boiler and Mechanical.
Yeah, so Wichita Burner would have been the other one.
And they didn't-
There was a guy out of Bark City at one time, and there was a guy out of Inman, Kansas, that done boiler work, but those guys.
How many of these-
The two boilers like this, they're not that common anymore. They're going to a water jacketed boiler
Right.
now, so.
So,
I mean, I went out and I got you what I could get you.
are boilers part of the system? Is there a new technology where we're not going to be using boilers, or is that?
You're going to use what they call a high efficiency boiler now, and they're more of a water jacketed boiler, not a fire tube boiler. And they're more like a hot water heater in a sense, and that's like at Roosevelt and that they put in, and basically on it, you're basically heating a loop to basically 60 to 80 degrees, and then that loop goes out to all your heat pumps, and your heat pumps
Pulls
actually
it off.
generate heat off
And will
of that.
these parts be able to be interwoven into any of the other equipment we have in the district?
These boilers?
Yeah. No, not the boilers, but these parts that we're making, these
No,
little
they're-
tubes.
They're just specifically
our-
to
this
that
is-
boiler. They're,
You
This
answered
is
my
arcane
question.
technology that we're not fully replacing, we're just getting by with this.
Yeah. Mr. President, I ask that we take a vote, please.
At this time, I want to go ahead and take a vote on the motion to approve the bid proposal from American Boiler and Mechanical for $26,900 to replace the boiler tubes at Rockwell. All in favor, vote yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, vote no.
No.
Motion
He wants you to freeze.
passed 6-1.
These are,
And the kids.
Remember, we had kids.
I understand
Just wanted to
that
make that point.
spending this money right when we're going to
Okay,
be
on
spending the
2.2.
property doesn't make sense.
Do you have?
Request for approval of Hayes Middle School HVAC upsizing installation. So we may need Rusty back
Yeah, I was
up.
gonna let Rusty take this one. Rusty, come on up.
This is on the middle
Middle
school
school stuff.
HVAC.
So basically, the middle school HVAC, when it was installed back in 2000, I put it in there.
16.
16, thank you. 2016, I sent out a deal to Ron that I think he forwarded out to you, that basically, the design standards that they used at the time for that have switched over the years, basically because they have a better understanding of how VRF works. And rather than me sit up here and try to explain it all to you, they actually have a representative from the company that sold us the equipment, which would be the vendor for the equipment that we got, it's LG equipment. It's a VRF system. It's basically a variable refrigerant flow system. So basically, it's similar to a heat pump system, only instead of being running off of either air chilled, it runs at a higher compressor rate and stuff so that you can get actually more efficiency out of it. It wasn't 100% new technology in 2016, but it was really new to this area. It'd been around for a while in other areas. Several schools were adopting it at that time because it was actually a more affordable system to put in as systems were failing. So Lance Logansville is here from BCS, Building Control Systems. They're the one that was the vendor that supplied the equipment. I think he's prepared to tell you sort of the evolution of how this came about and where we're at now and sort of what we're recommending. So I'll turn it over to him.
Okay, welcome.
Good evening. Just a quick introduction of myself. I've been with Building Controls and Services for about 10 years now. Started in the controls department and actually helped with the design of the Siemens controls that went in at the middle school at the time of this project. Since then, I've moved into more of an owner direct account role, which I work with existing customers of ours that utilize our products and so forth. And through those processes, we discuss issues that have arisen with anything within our products. We discuss energy efficiencies, we discuss training aspects that are needed within the facility and the maintenance crew. And that's ultimately what I've been doing with Rusty for the last, I want to say 18 months to 2 years, ever since prior to Roosevelt kicking off. I've been working direct with him and his staff. And through those conversations, one of the things that came up was the middle school and the HVAC at the middle school. They had concerns with some recent repairs that had come about, and some of them were repeat offenders at that time on the same type of component. So he asked me to start looking into what are the causes, what could cause that? Are we doing something wrong, or is there something else underlying that's causing the issue? So I started to do that. We looked briefly into maintenance to see how maintenance was being performed, which I don't think is a culprit here. The VRF system that is installed in there is a complex system. There's a lot of moving parts within it. But ultimately, from what we found, maintenance really wasn't an issue, and servicing the equipment. Another thing we looked at was electrical. We do know in conversations with Rusty and his staff that the Hayes Middle School does experience some voltage fluctuations. They do have power blips in that area. That again can contribute to component failures and so forth, but that's really hard to predict, and that's really hard to pinpoint that is the issue. The final thing that we looked at was how are systems or that type of HVAC system being installed in 2015, and how does it compare to we design or mechanical engineers design today? And we've looked at that and we found some things that we believe could be improved on or improved on. With that, mechanical engineers use the term that's called diversity within a system when they're designing equipment and so forth. And I'm going to try to explain this in a way that would make sense, but if you think of your household and your electrical panel in your household, you've got one single breaker that may control 20 or some outlets within your system, and that's a 20 amp breaker. If you go in and plug every piece of equipment or device into all those outlets, you're going to pop that breaker. It's going to overload the system, essentially. And that's what people design around within electrical systems and mechanical systems today across several HVAC systems throughout. And that's how it was designed in 2015. Now that we're in 2022 and we've seen within this area the climate and the extreme temperatures that we've seen, we see that there's a change in how mechanical design engineers are looking at that. They're removing that term of diversity out of these types of systems, VRF systems. So ultimately, that's what we're looking at doing here at the middle school. Now, through BCS and the manufacturer, we are willing to concession the equipment, which means that we're willing to provide that equipment at no cost for the equipment only. But there is an installation fee associated with that. And that installation fee is the upsizing of electrical breakers, because we are upsizing the equipment to meet that load of the district, or of the middle school. And there's also mechanical refrigerant piping that would be upsized as well. You got craning the units off the roof and craning the new units on the roof. And that's what this $42,000 is associated with for install cost. One thing that we do know happened in the year of 2020 is we did have that period in February where we had negative 15 degrees for about 2 weeks. That kind of temperatures does adverse effects on any sort of outdoor equipment. That put a lot of stress on not just that equipment, but I'm sure equipment across the district. And what we do know is on these VRF systems, the outdoor equipment does start to derate below 0 degrees outside air temperatures, which derate means it loses capacity. So at 0 degrees, you may be able to maintain 100% capacity, but at negative 15, you may only be able to run at 70% capacity. So there is this design aspect that we know about with extreme cold temperatures that would put stress on this system and so forth. So that's essentially what we're looking at here for the middle school. We want to make sure that we're being a partner with the district. We want to show that our support and so forth with this, and I'm open to answer any questions.
So,
Okay, thank you for that, and a lot of
I
it.
covered a lot of information,
Yeah.
sorry. I tried to
No.
stay out of the weeds, but
And
it's
you,
really hard.
I think you've touched on some of what this next question I'm about to ask you.
Okay.
But I'd really like you to drill into, there is, of course, we have information in front of us, and there's a statement here that says that you've agreed to replace the current equipment at no cost. Can you somewhat go into more detail as to what was some of the rationale, and also what, I'm a little confused as to what that actual amount would be that you are indeed saving our district?
Yeah, so there are 3 outdoor units that sit up on top of that roof. And those 3 outdoor units are the pieces of equipment that I'm talking about that we would concession to the district. And that would need to be replaced. Those 3 outdoor units serve several indoor units throughout the building. And all those indoor units, or a select number of them, are all fed from that outdoor unit. And so that outdoor unit is ultimately, the indoor load of all those other indoor rooms and so forth is higher than the capacity of that outdoor unit due to the mechanical design term of diversity within the system, because you're expecting that load throughout the day is going to move from room to room. There's not going to be 100% capacity in every single room all the time. And so that's why they use that term diversity. Now, what we know between the adverse effects of extreme temperature and extreme cold weather and what it does to the equipment from a design standpoint that was back in 2015 to what we know today is the reason why we're looking at being able to replace this equipment and concession it for the district.
So it's not necessarily that there was a flaw
No.
in the original design?
That design is still used today. That's a common practice used for mechanical engineers today. And it's still a design practice used for the current equipment that is on Hayes Middle School. If you go 100 miles south, the temperatures from there compared to here are even slightly different there. So as we know more about this area, and that in 2020, that was a 50-year experience. I mean, we haven't seen that kind of
It
stuff.
was miserable. It was miserable.
Yeah, so we know that. And to top that, the issues that Rusty was experiencing all happened after 2020. Am I correct in saying that? Yeah, so all those issues that he's talking about, repairs that we've made, have been since 2020. And we think that's ultimately could be the culprit here.
All right, so if we were paying for it, how much would it cost what you're conceding to us there?
Oh, man, you're gonna ask that question. Here's what I can tell you. The original project was 1.3 million back in 2015. What this cost is 42,000, so it's about 3.5%. The equipment, I did not look up what the equipment price is currently, and that equipment price is fluctuating at this market all the time right now. So I don't have those numbers, but what I can tell you, those outdoor units that serve all the indoor units are the most expensive part of the system. They're the ones that run everything. If those go down, everything that's tied to that is down. So it's the large portion of that system.
Okay, and so I'm sorry, were you raising your hand?
I'm done.
Oh, okay, so the outside units, though, are the focus of this repair?
Yes.
So as we plan and implement our renovations to the building, those would not be affected by this repair that we're,
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
the exact plans.
because, I mean, this is one of the renovation spaces.
Back to the original question, though. We're replacing the three big,
Yeah.
that's what we're doing, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We've been in contact with DLR and
Okay.
Netflix both, and are working with them, and what, on these units, and I may not use the correct term, but they're basically modular. Once you've got the main unit set, the rest of the pieces you can
They can,
move
like,
with inside.
okay.
Talking to DLR, there's a portion of that building that the footprint's gonna stay the same, so those units won't. Once you get down to the west end, there's a portion of that the footprint might change, but we should be able to reutilize or change some of the equipment inside, but the unit size is the correct size for the outside.
Right, and these pieces won't move from where they are now, and those are permanent?
Not the outdoor units.
That's right.
They're on a curb, they're gonna stay on the roof right where they're at.
Okay,
And the modular aspect that Rusty was talking about is, and actually the middle system that serves the majority of the classroom is a 2 modular unit. So it has 2 physical units side by side. You can add more to those as the system grows and so forth. But ultimately, what we're doing here is we're not adding more, we're upsizing the current. So
Right.
we're replacing those with larger capacity units to be able to remove this term of diversity that is still used today.
okay.
But the project's still flexible enough that
Yeah.
we can add, we can subtract, we can move stuff where we,
Yep, and the nice thing about, and this is one of the reasons why this system went in back in 2015, is it's great for retrofits. You ultimately have very little ductwork above ceiling. It's all a refrigerant pipe that is about the size of this that gets routed throughout the building. So it's very cost effective, and that's probably one of the reasons, which I wasn't part of the original conversations of why it went VRF originally, but that's one of the reasons why it went that way is the easiness for flexibility in retrofits.
So to summarize what I'm hearing, in 2020, there was an act of God that came and impacted our equipment. And from every contract I've ever been a part of, act of God is usually never covered by companies such as yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least that's been my experience, so I'm pretty impressed that we're working with a vendor that is willing to meet us somewhat.
And that's the thing that I think over the years, and I'm going to speak for BCS here, but we've recognized that we don't view our relationship as a vendor. We review it as partnership. We're here to help support you guys. Like I said, I've been meeting with Rusty for the last 18 months to 2 years, and we've done extensive training with not only Rusty, but his staff too. Sometimes those meetings are an hour in his office with his maintenance staff. Sometimes they're as long as 4 hours. So we're here, we're invested, we're wanting to make sure that the district is utilizing their money appropriately ultimately. So
They've also been a big part of Roosevelt HVAC expansion and
Yes.
Are
And
these-
that's part of the conversation.
Are these the same units that are on
No.
Roosevelt?
No,
And they're not the ones at Hayes High?
no.
They're different?
Yeah, those are water source heat pumps and rooftops. This is a VRF system.
DRF, okay.
And I think the reason why they probably went water source heat pump there is like the existing high school was already water source heat pump. So the setup there was,
So none of the parts are warranty work, it's all just it's not,
we
It's
are
only
able
checking the
through
sidewalk.
the manufacturer to help concession. So
So they're-
not only they're working with us and we're working with them. I'm not saying that they're warranting because they're not. They don't claim it as a warranty situation because that design practice is still used today, ultimately.
so this is, 6 years, and we usually hope that these last a lot longer than that. And so what is our warranty on the system?
The
Is
current
it 1 year?
warranties for the new,
Well, when we did the 1.3 million renovation.
that was, I believe, a 3-year parts warranty on that. I don't know that for sure, but they have changed their warranty standards as of late, or as of the last few years on newer installations. And if the system is started up and certified by a factory certification technician, parts and compressors and so forth on these pieces of equipment are a 10-year warranty now for parts and material.
So this is for labor. Can we do this without having bids?
Why would we want to do a bid, though, when a company is offering to
I
pay?
don't, are we legally required for like a
That would be a
warranty?
question then for Alan,
Well,
or
Yeah,
for
so-
Bill then.
This might lead us into another conversation, but a couple of things. We are a member of Greenbush,
Okay.
which is a cooperative.
Right.
So we are able to sell our products, our LG VRF system, our Aeon rooftops, and our Siemens control system through Greenbush, which is a competitive bid process, and utilize the installation services within that contract as well. So that's one reason there. But the other reason too, on top of this, is just for, yeah, you might want to talk about the existing system that installed.
When this was installed, Glassman was the primary contractor for that, and the initials killed me. RDH. RDH was the electrical. BCS went back to Glassman and to RDH, the local vendors that installed it, and worked with them to come up with the pricing for this. So they're standing all the cost of the equipment changeover, and we're using the local vendors that were in on the project, because there's going to have to, so to clarify Tammy's question to start with, there's two different proposals here. One, they're willing to take and change all the equipment out for like equipment just as it stands, no cost.
No installation costs.
No installation cost. But that puts us at exactly the same place we are right now, which is, has the diversity figured into it, all that piece of it. We can accept that tonight and go that route if that's what you want to do, but 6 years from now, we hit another 20 cold weather, we could be right back where we were at and looking at the same thing. So as we were talking this, we had our engineer, along with them, take a look at this and look at the practices then, look at the practices now, and come back and say, here's where we are at. Do we want to go back with like equipment and end up with the exact same system that we had that failed us? Or do we want to look at the standards that they're using nowadays, going ahead and upsize? There's a little bit of piping upsize, and with going with the upsize on the unit, we're going to have to increase some electrical service there. So what you're seeing in that cost is RDH and Glassman's cost for the installation of the electrical service and the piping that it's going to take to upsize it to put the bigger equipment on there. And then at that point, we'll have equipment that's sized to the standards that they're using for VRF at this time. All your warranties will start over, and they'll be from 3-year warranties up to 10-year warranties for that cost. We have a cooperative that we can do it through that is state, it's accepted as state bids, and that's sort of what we're working off of.
I guess from listening to the discussion, I am not an HVAC professional or know how the technology has increased over since 2016. I've heard that we are getting a lot of new equipment at no cost. We're getting an extended warranty on this new equipment for up to 10 years at just at $43,000 to increase the pipe sizing and upgrading the electrical. And so like I said, I don't have any questions of what it will do. It just sounds like it is a opportunity for us to get new equipment, new warranties with minimal charge of installation.
And to be more prepared for when a freak situation might occur again, is what I'm also hearing to add on to that.
My only question is, I don't know what the rules are, but if we have a rules that everything in this school district at this dollar amount gets bidded, and that's our rules, then I want to follow the rules too. And I don't know what the rules are. When do we bid, when do things get bidded out?
This, because of the Greenbush Cooperative, basically, it's already been bid. We just didn't have to go through the process of bidding it. So they bid everything on a regular basis, so everything is pre-approved. So in the bid rules, the state guidelines, you have to bid it, or you have to purchase it, or, well, you have to bid it. This has already been bid for you, and because BCS is in that cooperative, it's already bid.
What is
They're
the,
not buying the equipment.
I understand that.
They're giving, so that conversation, this bid really doesn't even apply, because we're not buying equipment. We're installing.
But we're bidding service. I mean, there's service there.
What's the amount?
There is no amount.
No, but if we buy an equipment.
That's what you're saying. 20.
No. What is the bid magic number when we have to send things out for bids? 20 grand?
20,000.
Okay, that's what I'm on. That's my question. Yeah.
Okay, at this point,
Well, there's several things. We don't have to bid on some things, because if it's a service, anything that's construction, reconstruction, remodeling, those are the things that we have to do. But there are exceptions to the 20,000.
But I also think it's a good practice to send out bids, so everybody has an opportunity, and it's,
I'll get you those,
and the public.
but there are exceptions. to the
That's fine, I just asked.
I just didn't want it to become that it's
But-
obvious every.
But if I'm hearing the concern that you were expressing, we're not in that situation with this. Is what.
That's the answer I got, yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to call for a vote.
okay,
We got a motion.
at this
Oh, make a
point,
motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the installation of a VRF HVAC upsizing for $42,669 by BCS Building Control Services at Hayes Middle School. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this issue? Hearing none, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All voting for approval, vote yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, vote no. Okay, Rusty, Lance, thank you.
Great job, guys. Thank you so much.
The other guy.
Yeah.
The other guy.
Okay, 6.3, request for approval of the updated BOE policy recommendations. This is a second read. Looking through our packets, there's a pretty good information on each one of the KSB recommendations. I didn't count them. There's got to be 27 recommendations of policy revisions. I know Ron has looked at them. I know Mr. Jeter, you were taking a look at them. Is there any concern from either one of you? Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I move that we approve the KASB recommended policy revisions.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the KSB policy recommendations. Any further discussion?
I have one clarification question. Were there any recommended changes between our first reading and second reading that anybody brought forward? Okay, thank you.
Okay, all that approved the proposal, vote yes.
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 All opposed, vote no. Passes, I believe, 7-0. Request for approval of the classified handbook changes. This is also a second read. Ron or Chris?
I'll let Chris. Yeah, there was just very minimal change, not much to do this time around the script, so.
Great dress code. Okay, between the first and second readings.
No change from the first reading to this time.
There's just those date changes, aren't they?
Yeah.
2 to 3 days.
Wording changes.
Do I have a motion to request for approval of the classified handbook
Mr. President,
changes?
I move that we approve the changes to the classified handbook as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I call for a vote. All that approve, vote yes.
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 All opposed, vote no. 7-0. Okay, we're down to 6.5. We moved personnel transactions from the consent agenda. Again, under the recommendation of Mr. Jeter, I want to be careful on any time we discuss personnel in public session that we don't use names, anything like that. So Alan, how do we want to proceed on this?
Well, first, the clarification, I noticed some of them started in August, and can I have clarification of why didn't we approve those in the August meeting? Or were they hired after we had a meeting?
Are these positions?
Yeah, some of them start in August, and we have some that are actually starting in October. When it says the start date, and I understand that sometimes, like...
Yeah, I would just, the only thing I would tell you, and Chris can talk as well, because he deals with this probably closer than I do, but August is an extremely busy time in the world of personnel as we try to, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, a lot of it would probably just be timing, and I don't know, what was the date of our?
Well, there's one at 8/19.
22nd.
So there's one before, that was...
Before our last meeting?
Yeah, the 22nd. So nearly all of them they happened after that. And I'd have to go back and look specifically at I'm seeing one, there's two that are before.
Yeah, just to.
So I think it was probably just a matter of timing before we get, as folks are being interviewed at the building level, a lot of the positions classified especially are being interviewed at the building level. Principal makes a recommendation, so we get the recommendation for employment. By the time we get some of the paperwork and things like that back, and probably just the timing of it, we didn't have time to get it on the agenda before the 22nd.
And that would be with resignations too? I mean, there's a couple resignations dated in May.
Yeah, so,
By the time they come through
a lot of what happens on those is,
Oh, well, that's
we
the-
don't know they're not coming back until
What's the
we
KBC?
get to school starting, and then we find out, oh, they're not coming back, so,
Okay.
yeah.
The resignation goes back to the last day that they were at.
Okay.
Okay, I was also looking, we've got a replacement for a position, but we don't have a resignation for that position.
Maybe it was a previous resignation.
Well,
No, it's not. It's like, is there a new position?
I mean, can you be more specific without
Okay,
going
it's
into?
custodial.
The custodial is, I think if you're referring to the two positions that are listed there, the transfers or a resignation?
No, in addition, a lead custodian,
Yeah, he resigned.
we had a
We
lead.
You don't-
hired anybody yet.
No, the one at Hayes High resigned, because we don't have it on here.
I don't see
Well,
it.
it's
It says lead
So there was
custodian.
a position, an adjustment there, and I can let Rusty talk about it too, but I think I can talk you through it. So we had basically our lead custodian was also filling in as the head custodian, has been for years over the course of time. And as I understand it, back when that happened, we added another night custodian, I think. Based on some of the changes we've made and staffing, some of the staffing issues we faced, we need that lead custodian to be freed up during the day. So we eliminated the night custodian that was added years ago and moved this back to a head. So basically it was shuffling. Total head count stays the same, adjustment of assignment.
You basically right-sized
Right-sized,
employees,
yes.
which is a very common practice.
Yeah.
So the lead custodian is in charge of the group at that time, or
Head
at that building?
custodian, yeah, head custodian is at the building level, lead custodian over all custodial staff.
Okay, that's a new position? Do we have a job description for that one?
Yeah, no, he's always been the lead. He's been based out of the high school and acting as the head custodian
So
for
he's-
the high school as well.
I think doubling up.
Right, basically, yeah. And so,
So,
This
Because
is
of the
more of a
changes.
clarification of paperwork than it is of actual position changes?
yeah, his response, yeah, the
Or it gets question mark?
responsibility, without going into names and everything else.
Right.
Or design, but, so the lead custodian overall, so if you look at the hierarchy of buildings and grounds, you got Rusty as the director, then we have a head of maintenance and a head of custodial. That head of custodial position has been, for the last few years, for the last many years, I think, been placed at Hayes High and also served as the head, in charge, or the lead custodian, I'm sorry. The lead custodian for that building. We're breaking that back apart. Every other building has a lead custodian.
or a head custodian. You're getting me confused there with head and lead.
I don't know which one it is.
Every building has a head custodian.
Every building has a head custodian.
Lead.
Yeah,
Thanks, Rusty.
I'm getting crossed up with lead and head, but basically.
me too.
Okay, every building has a lead custodian.
Correct.
The head custodian, overall custodial staff, has also been serving as the lead custodian at the high school.
Correct.
We're adjusting that now.
So, previous staffing, the way we were set up, we had one person that was the head custodian, but they were housed at the high school, so they were doing both head and lead custodial position.
And when
Can
did
I,
that
can I,
start?
can I ask, you, how long has that been?
That's been since I came here in
I was going to say,
2014.
quite a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what's happened is, I don't know if you've all noticed that the workforce doesn't exist in the country anymore.
Pretty slim.
Yeah. So what's happened is, we've started having to shift positions to fill our night shifts, or evening shifts, fill those. And in doing that, you'll see transfers on there. We're transferring people around from buildings, and what the goal is to try to maintain the middle school and the high school with our own staff because of all the activities that take place at night with them. We're currently down, at one time we were down 6 staff members from the evening shift. If we had somebody that was gone, like a lead custodian, we also call them day porters, the person that's there during the day, if they're gone, we would usually cover them from somebody from the evening shift. Well, that's went away. We don't have any, we're not deep enough to do it. We've been paying overtime for the last 2 years trying to cover all the positions that we're covering. We have the ability, we've got the guy that's listed there coming on with 20-some years of experience, and we've had an administrator that's worked with him that knows, highly recommended. So we have the ability to fill that lead position and free up the head custodian then to go out and fill in and work with the buildings that are short-staffed right now to help fill those in and do that piece of it. The other part that we've done is we've also contracted with CleanRight. Right now, we're actually having 2 of our elementaries, the whole evening shift is CleanRight employees right now. So we're contracted with them doing that. Now, one of the pieces of that is with the way COVID was and with the way the staffing is, we're actually being able to fund that out of some funds. So it freed us up the ability to shift some people to try to help us cover those positions, and that's what this whole thing's about, is basically covering the current positions that were open. Actually, by filling this position, it was a position that always existed, it was just being covered in dual roles. By filling this position, I still think we're down 3 people at this point, aren't
Yeah.
we?
So
Chris?
basically, we eliminated one of the 9 custodian positions that wasn't filled, that we didn't have filled anyway, and we're still sitting at 3 down at the 9.
And then if we see that, as we start hiring back, if we want to change it, I mean, we've got the flexibility to move it however, but currently, this is sort of what we need to do just to cover what we currently have going on.
So is he still going to be at the high school?
No, he will not be at the high school. He's going to float between the elementaries right now that are being basically contract cleaned.
I'd like, Mr. President, if we may move forward, I'd like to make a recommendation that we motion to approve the personnel.
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the personnel transactions. Any further discussion?
I do. I have one more question to Rusty. So when we had the dual lead head at Hayes High, was that 2 salaries they were getting, or that's one?
No, it was the head custodial salary. He was just housed at Hayes High. So basically, we're moving him out of Hayes High, and we're moving a lead position in there.
Okay.
Oh, Rusty, is that, so it's the same salary and everything, no change in salary?
No change in salary, because he's just doing the same work.
Just making them do extra work for no
Right.
extra money.
Or getting extra help?
Okay, I call for a vote on the motion. All approval for the personnel transactions, vote yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, vote no.
Okay, I didn't get it.
I got kicked offline, so you might not be able to.
Oh, there we go.
I hit the re-happy button.
I got it.
Yeah. There it came on.
Okay, we're ready for 7.0. We do have an executive session tonight. We will be recessing into executive session under number 2, motion to go into executive session in consultation with the attorney, which would be deemed privileged attorney-client relationship in order to protect attorney-client privilege and public interest. Ron, who will be attending?
It will be all of us and Rusty and Bill.
Okay,
Yeah, that's it.
how long?
20 minutes.
Okay,
After a 5-minute break, sir?
Yes.
okay. How long will you need?
20.
20?
He said 20.
20.
Okay, we will be going into executive session for 20 minutes with a 5-minute break before the 20 minutes, so we will be returning.
8:22.
8:22.
What'd you say?
How about 8:22?
8:22.
I have
Do you need a motion?
I'll second your motion that I think you just made.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to go into executive session for 20 minutes with those people attending. All in favor, vote yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, vote no. Okay, we're on a 5-minute break. We'll start about 1 or 2 after